We have a couple of different topics here today we're going to be talking about. One is finance, so that's the first topic we're going to talk about, not about finance and as in finance, but AI in finance. And we also later have Dr. Mundane from NYU talking about education, and as you might have seen on the agenda, and then there's a conversation around AI in retail. Where we have a couple of folks from Walmart who are visiting here all the way from DC. They're somewhere here in the room. I can't see them, but you'll hear from them. So yeah, before we get started, I'd like to introduce some of the panelists here. Michael Marcotte, who's famously the co-founder of the National Cyber Center. He keeps America safe. And Nisha Paliwal, who is the managing vice president at Capital One, who is recently author of a book on AI. Her book is out there. There's a QR out there. You can find it. I'm sure you can learn more. Nisha is all about value creation with AI, and she deeply cares about it. And she has a vast AI experience. And our friend Andrew here, who we just met today, runs an AI company, C3AI, and he's going to share with us his experiences in the finance industry as well. So what is this conversation in finance and AI all about? And why in the world should we even care about this? I generally don't like the why inquiry. If anyone has seen the Intellibus YouTube, I like the how inquiry better because it's call to action in it. The question is, why should we care about AI and finance at all? And it's really about the relationship that we have with our banks. How many of us opened a bank account? All right, I'm glad we're not from the dark ages. Okay, how many of us actually opened a bank account online without going into a bank? Okay, all right, what bank was that? Capital One. Okay, there you go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so Capital One actually transformed banking, right? And it's one of the banks, and several. And we are proud to have Nisha here. You don't have to go to a bank. Now we talked about the human experience. So you definitely want the human experience. And when do you really want it? Not when you're opening the account, when you have a problem. When you don't have to call that 800 number and talk to Julie. No offense to Julie from Amtrak, but whatever you have to talk to. And then finally, what is the magic keyword when we call that number? Agent. Agent. You say agent 5 times, and eventually the AI just gets out of your way, and you can talk to a human. So the same way, we want to talk about AI, and we want to talk about AI and finance. So what is that relationship between you and how many know Erica? Erica, Bank of America, Erica. Okay. So how many of us deal with Erica? How many of us actually talk to Erica? I don't know. I never talked to Erica. I mean, not Erica from Bank of America. So that's the challenge, right? We have had this AI around for a while. It's not new. But how's that relationship going to change? How many of us have an investment account? And this is private information. Feel free to not raise your hand. How many of us actually used an investment advisor, talked to a human? How many of us have got terrible advice? Okay, so we know, right? Now, if the terrible advice came from AI, who would we hold accountable? I don't know. Maybe the company, maybe like an airline that recently said, oh, I won't give you your refund. We all read the news. I'm not going to call them out. Oh, I won't give you your money back. It's going to be a serious problem, right, with AI and finance if we don't figure out what the guardrails are, who's accountable. So there's a broader accountability question, but I'm not here to answer. That's why we have the experts. I'm just here to ask all the questions on your behalf, and then you can ask your questions yourself. So without further ado, I'd like to go around the panel and maybe pick a topic, and we'll just talk about what is the relationship between us and the bank of the future, us and our financial advisors of the future. And we can pick any persona, whichever you'd like, and maybe I will start with Andrew if you want to go first.
Yeah, thank you. So thinking about us and the bank of the future, I would say, like with what I'm seeing today and then kind of projecting that forward, it's really the personalization of service. You created this digital version of yourself. And so this digital version of yourself exists, and it's out there. And that can be a scary thing, but it can also be a really good thing where you can have artificial intelligence that's like these algorithms that are out there looking for things that will help you. And so this could be in the financial world, like it understands the risk that you're looking to take. It understands the returns you're looking to get. It understands different rates that you could get to help pay down debt, et cetera. And so you have this digital idea of yourself that you've created, and then you have 24/7 around the clock in your finance, you have these algorithms that are out there searching for you, looking for you, and it's completely custom to you because of the way that the artificial intelligence is able to understand you as a person. And so like you'll be able to sign on and get advice and recommendations that you are the only person that will ever see that. Because it removes kind of the human from the loop. Obviously, there's risk. I think this is a ways out, especially in the finance side, because there's a lot of concern, and we want to move very slowly in that space. But it's definitely something that in the future, I think will be a big part of our banking.
Yeah, thank you, Ed, first of all, for having us here. And thank you so much for all of you who joined in person and digital, too. So just from context of my profile, so I'm a mother, 2 very beautiful girls. Both of them have credit cards. You can imagine which bank. I'm, of course, a daughter. My parents are in India. When I think of future of finances in general, I want something which is extremely trusted, but well-controlled, proactive everything in finance. And I chose those words very selectively. Trusted, right? My parents are in India. They are older. I do a lot of their finances online and also manage, their assets and investments and everything. This word of trusted is very, very critical to me. So from a background, it's just tons of data is what I deal. And data is the thing which is feeding all these things, right? Today we are talking of only one technology, AI. When you think of what it takes to do that future, it's a lot more technology than just AI. AI is, to me, just a piece of it. It's a model which executes, and then you have to do. Do you think of amount of technology that is needed to do the future of banking? That trust is very important. And then I mentioned my 2 girls with credit cards with limit, wherever they are swiping, all that data that is getting collected, so that control, right, that we need in the family to do that. I don't have small business. So if I open a company, how does that work, right? And then, of course, this point of integrated, right? Like, how do you get all of us on the same page and imagine the future of what that could be? So these are very visionary words. We are definitely not there, but we have to definitely think about what this could be.
Wow, where do I go with this? So, first of all, AI is a marketing term. I think everybody in this room would understand that. We're talking about algebra, lots of storage, and huge computing power. I view it as a tool for people to be able to use to make good decisions, provided that they understand the results they're getting and where it came from initially. As it pertains specifically to banking, and with huge respect to my esteemed colleague to the left here, I've known for a little while now, I can assure you this is a principled statement, not a political one. I am all about the sovereignty of the individual. If you want or need, those are different things, a want and a need, to be governed by a large bank or government institution because you may not have the financial education or background or knowledge to do it yourself, then by all means, you should be able to do that. While at the same time, if you want to be your own bank, you should be able to do that too. And that freedom should never be impeded on anyone. If you want to keep a bunch of cash under your bed and it catches on fire and you know the ramifications of doing that, okay, then you take responsibility for yourself. The technologies exist today to allow that choice to occur. If you want to use one of the big banks, by all means, do it. If you want to talk to the financial advisor who apparently gave Ed bad advice, then by all means. However, if you want to be responsible for yourself, you can also do that. How does it pertain to AI? Well, there's lots of cool things you can even get out of large language models, but you better understand where it comes from and how it got there in the first place. We were having an interesting conversation prior to this going on. A couple of quick points just on artificial intelligence and even its compute power. First of all, I would submit to this group, there is a ton of available compute power. It's in your pockets. Anybody who's got an iPhone 15 in here, raise your hand. Ooh, there's a bunch of them. All right, or even a 14. How many compute cycles do you think are available on those? 97% on average. Okay, with end-to-end encryption that protects your sovereignty, your individual sovereignty, which is what Ed was alluding to before, that can be aggregated across all those devices. We've got tons of compute capability. And then if you don't like it, turn it off. So we live in a world of infinite possibilities right now. It's a matter of leveraging what we have and doing it the right way. And of course, it all relates to us as individual people, our money, our identity, our sovereignty, and our principles. Not politics, not hyperventilating about someone's haircut or their age or anything like that. A return to core principles that used to be self-evident to all of us. So anyway, thank you for letting me pontificate.
No,
By the way, have you looked at my socks? Someone gave me these socks, and I decided to wear them.
That's great, great insight there. So I think one of the key points that came about was the sovereignty of the individual, and what does that actually mean, and where does your data actually sit? And we talked about the lens of the digital you. So you think about the digital you. How many of us have more than one bank account or one banking relationship? Almost all of us, right? And how many of us have actually ever tried to get any data out of it to make sense of it, like export it, put it in spreadsheet? I won't use the word Excel, but I just did. So we ever tried to do it? How many of us actually use some tools like Mint or tried to do some analysis of our finances to see how we're spending, where we're spending? How many of us have been able to find a good AI solution doing this? Okay, so clearly no hands in the room. So even though there's so much talk about AI, the applied answers, the applied solutions aren't really there. How many of us have used a chatbot that's AI-powered on a financial advisor website? Can someone humor me? What chatbot they used? What website was it? Citi. So we just heard the person in the room said that the best chatbot they used was Citi, and it was great because it quickly connected them to the representative. So much for AI. Okay, so we can see that there's a gap between the promise. How many of us have used this thing called ChatGPT that came out? Okay, great. We've all heard of it. And how many of us feel that ChatGPT has shown us the promise of AI? Okay, all right, that's good. I thought there'd be more hands in the room. My colleagues has brought the term AI to the front of marketing, much like cloud was initially at the front of marketing. People would take racks of same hardware that they were selling before and call it private cloud and sell that hardware to you, and you'd buy it for a higher price. So yes, there's a little bit of that. But at the same time, with all due respect to all the research that has happened, from everything, all the algorithms right down to Q-Star that is being developed by some friends of ours, it's out there. It's just out there. And the question is, how much is the gap between what's happening and to be applied? So again, this is in the context of, say, the spirit of this conversation, talking AI, I'd like to get some inputs from the room. This is not a quiz, it's just like what you desire, to collect the desire from the room. And I was born and raised in India, I'm going to keep talking about it all the time. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see, right? So what do you deeply desire, right? What do you deeply desire? Not change, of course, but what would you like to see differently in the financial banking industry? Would you like to see a chatbot that takes you fastest to the agent? So the promise of AI, the reason we go to an agent, not because we are dying for the human experience. I mean, by no means I'm trying to say something against what Dinesh said. I mean, there's value to what he said. But at the same time, the human experience, we crave for it only because we want to be heard. We want an answer. So maybe I'll just go around the room on that, saying how much does the human experience in banking really, really matter? And is it really about just getting the right answer, like someone here in the room pointed out? Or is it truly, what is that nuance there? Do we really care about that human side of the experience? Someone who says, hey, what coffee did you have? Or hey, how's it going? Gives us a smiley. Or is it really about getting my answers quick? Hey, how much money is in my bank account? And give me the right answer. So again, maybe we'll go in the reverse order, Michael.
I think the human experience is profoundly important. We are energetic beings. That's not replaceable by a machine, traditionally speaking. Someone asking you when you're having a bad day, if you had a nice day or if you had your coffee in the morning, is profoundly important. It actually is called living in solution, helps solve whatever problem exists that day. The human mind is the most incredible computer that has ever been developed. It's not getting replaced. Neurosynaptic connectivity and neuroplasticity cannot be duplicated in a binary computer or a quantum computer, no matter what we do to it. Now, will it augment what we do? Absolutely. So I would submit that human interaction is profoundly important. Empathy, sympathy, all of those things. Help me solve my problem. Live in solution with me. That's a human thing.
So I don't know, the way I understood the question, I will say reverse of what Mike said. not like, so if in the future I can have a bot do the mundane task, I don't care who's on the other side. Bot and bot can talk to each other and do all the mundane tasks. I don't have to get involved. This is where I deeply feel 8 billion of us on Earth, and WeWork CEO said it, Ed said it in his, this creativity that we can imagine the future and what that will look for is onto us. So do we want to keep doing that mundane task of opening a bank account, asking a chatbot something? I don't want to do that. Just take it away so I have free time to do whatever.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah, thank you.
The shit work can be handled.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What a friendly panel we have.
I think that's the future I want, is I don't want to do things. I mean, again, I'm also talking, when I talk to my kids on how they want to do banking, the younger generation has a very different meaning of all these tools and technologies. They grew up with social media. Ed said he was born in India. I was born in India. I was raised in India. I didn't have laptop till college, maybe? Yeah. So these kids start with probably, from the time they start in getting birth in the hospital, they probably have an iPhone by the time they reach home these days. So what are the technologies that will be available to the kids in the coming generation is unfathomable. Where I think humans can really collaborate very well is beyond that imagination. So what do you want? I don't want to be sitting with the bot asking questions. I really don't want.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I think it's like the human interaction that I want isn't with the customer service representative on the phone. Like if we can handle that, get the answers quickly, and that's the kind of the challenge with you talked about the failed promise of AI today, where it's like there's a lot of risk in just setting a ChatGPT LLM as a representative of your company directly interacting with your customers, especially in the financial industry, a lot of risk. And so there's a lot of, I think it's not that the technology is not there, it's just that you give a wrong answer. And like if you're at 90% accuracy, that's really good, like for the task, but for those 10% of customers, you're having lawsuits, you're out. Like it's impossible right now to do it. And so we see a lot of LLMs in finance is kind of more on an internal, where you're working inside the bank, inside the organization, and there's always like with the disclaimer and the warning, like this is like verify this, don't copy paste, like this isn't necessarily the answer, like you need to verify it and you're still responsible for what comes out of it. But I think that will get better. There's room to make that better and to reduce that risk, to reduce kind of the hallucination and to improve the accuracy to the point where we'll get there. But to circle back, I would rather be human interacting with my friends while I'm not on the phone waiting to talk about my bank. So.
Very quickly, I agree with both of your comments, and this is handling those simple problems for sure. It's when there is a large problem that requires that human interaction. I will just lament a quick anecdote to the audience. I was in the C-suite of one of the largest telecommunications companies in the world, and we had an extremely agitated customer. He found me through the website. He wanted to talk to me. He didn't care about who was in the call center, and it full of F-bombs, full of them, all right? Probably offending everybody up the chain. My assistant came into my office and said, we've got a really upset customer right now. The most important thing in that day was for that customer to be heard. I didn't care how many F-bombs he dropped. What he said about me, it didn't matter. I needed to show empathy at that moment. And that was so profoundly important to him, the people around him, the ripple effect, and our business. Had I not picked up that call, heaven knows what would have happened. You know, I'm around later and can share with you guys the details of the story, but that's what I'm talking about. Can this other stuff be handled by a machine? Sure. But that other thing, whoa, that's a long ways away.
But that's not just in banking, Mike.
Right.
I would agree that is any industry.
Right.
You have to be customer focused, customer empathy. It's not just the banking.
Concur.
Yeah, and being able to have your AI agent discern that and route you the right way, like initially, and be able to escalate, accelerate, that type of stuff.
I prided ourselves on being the telecommunications company that sucked the least.
Yes, so it's interesting, the conversation around telecom, but we'll try to stick to finance here and
Customer service.
Yeah, and customer service maybe. You know, call centers are a big part of any industry, and obviously almost every call center company would want to automate the heck out of them as long as, you know, it creates more margin. So I think coming back to the question on responsibility.
It's not, yeah, I definitely agree on the exception, but think about it. What does AI need to do all this thing? Back again, my favorite topic, data, right? I'm going to ask a simple question. Can anybody tell me answer to the question I'm about to ask? What does fire mean to you? Nobody can give me a right answer. I'll tell you why. Because I didn't give you any context. Fire means so many things. Fire could mean, oh, look, the kitchen is burning. Fire could mean, my boss has just called me, I'm fired. Fire could mean, there was a gun in the back, I'm about to fire. Fire means so many things. And I think what you are saying, exception or no exception, the context if you don't have, you, no matter what model you put on it, it's not going to work because that context has to be right, by the way, right? This is the magic of whatever AI we are talking. To me, it's a set of things, technology, data, but ultimately the data, the compute, models gonna be very select because building these are going to be costly and expensive and all that. But I just wanted to add, it's not just the exception, it's like, which companies have that context is the question.
I want to jump into, I think it's also the tool, right? So like LLMs, ChatGPT, it's very impressive, but it's guessing the next word. Like that's what it's doing. Like sometimes it feels like you're talking to it. It seems like it understands, but it doesn't. Like it's literally just guessing the next word, and it has a bunch of history. It has a bunch of information, but it doesn't have any of that understanding. And so it really needs to be like, it's very impressive. It can do a lot, and like it's changing lives today. But it's like we're at the beginning of this, and it's limited. It's a limited tool, so we can use it, and we should get value from it. But I think like it's not a black box. It's not magic. It's math. It was said earlier. It's guessing the next word. It does a really good job.
So that's a great point, and thanks, Nisha, the point on context. How many of us AI engineers in the room? How many of us know what a context window is? And what the length of the context window does. Essentially allows you to pass more and more context as part of your question. Just think of the size of it. Simplest way to think about it is the size of your question. If the size of your question could contain your entire life story, that's the biggest possible context window. And then you can get the best possible answer. But that's usually not possible when you're talking to a chatbot right now. It's only the length of the question is whatever the length of the field they provide you. Let alone what the AI can handle as a context window. Think of what you as a user can provide as context at input. And now, if you're logged in, you're signed into the account, there's a lot more context, in theory, that through the back end, the systems can provide. There was a question in the back, gentleman there.
Seems like a lot of what you're talking about is that AI is assigned to low stakes tasks, if I'm kind of hearing it correct. And I like you were talking about, Michael, shit work. And I guess I wonder if you are seeing anywhere where AI is doing high stakes work?
Yeah, so I would say it's not across the board. It's not being assigned to just low stake tasks. I think it depends on the context of the problem that you're trying to solve. And like if you're a financial institution and you have people that are sending you queries, and whether that's using their personal data, like there's just so much risk that you give a wrong answer. And so and that specifically, we're talking about LLMs, generative AI. At the same time, like financial institutions are doing customer churn. Like I have a $10 billion bank account, and I can look at the past. I can use machine learning to model this behavior of this customer over time, and I can see 6 months before, I can see indicators that, hey, this looks like what other customers who have withdrawn their money from the account does. And so now we have 6 months that we can go in and we can change the behavior. We can, hit with promotions. We can solve the relationship rather than just like we wake up one day and the customer left. And so it's like there's a ton of value in AI, and it's like the generative AI, the LLMs. Like I think it's so new. People are still figuring it out and like putting up the guardrails to be safe. But as far as traditional machine learning, forecasting, these types of predictions, classifications, a ton of value, and those are in production today with a lot of people getting a lot of that.
First of all, it's a great question, and I'm going to go over here to it depends. So in the context in which we're talking, in what I'll just insert blank line here, customer service, finance, telecommunications, okay, fairly simple stuff. But on the back end of that, to the point that you just made, predictive analytics has been used for years. Teradata, Netezza, there's highly complex systems. We've just recently released these front ends for the general public's usage. This is why this isn't new. So as far as high stakes tasks, and when I say this, I'm no shill for Tesla, all right? But what they are doing right now in robotics and artificial intelligence is high stakes stuff. I mean, these things are advancing by mathematical definition, not at geometric progression, not even at exponential progression, but at quantum progression. Now, we've got androids that can now crack an egg and make your breakfast. That's high stakes stuff. If you apply pattern recognition to what that is potentially capable of doing, I mean, this is a deep conversation. This is a very good question.
But based on my knowledge in the financial sector globally, I have not come across anybody who's doing high stake, to your exact question. But I'm one person, I'm sure we can look up, but I haven't seen any financial sector in any country.
No, you have tons of data, and like you mentioned,
but it depends on who has the whole context to do that.
Especially the banks to the customer, because then that's the biggest value add customer could get by adding the traditional.
There is some, but think about it. Do they have all the data? Think about it, even for yourself.
Yeah.
Do any bank know everything about you to personalize?
That's a great question and a great point. I would simply add to this. This is where things are changing at a very rapid pace.
Absolutely.
There are fintech companies now who are ditching these traditional FICO scores because they don't tell the full picture. You can have a low FICO score or a high FICO score, and it doesn't tell it. And they're using AI now to make very quick decisions on people who would not otherwise be approved. They could get bonked by Bank of America, and I'm not picking on BOA, and then move over to a fintech company, and then all of a sudden have access to stuff that they have earned literally within minutes, and it's using these technologies to do it. I'd say that's high stakes.
Indeed, and especially with adaptive and fine-tuned LLMs coming in, especially for financial services, I think that's the game-changing. And the more and more personalizations we could bring, whether it's your mortgage rates, whether it is the savings rate you get, I think that would be transformational for people, but also for the financial services.
Where I've seen those types of deployments, it's like the LLM is like right now, it's the interface. Like the LLMs are the interface for people to interact with, but under the hood, they're going to have a different model that's factoring that out. It's going to be like a type of classification, and it says like I'm looking at all these different data sources and these fintechs that do stuff different, and that's what they're going to use to make their decision, because the LLM is not accurate enough to put that kind of money on. And it actually, like LLMs are terrible at math. They don't do it. Like they don't know how to do 2 + 2. They know historically in the corpus of human writing that 2 + 2 that equals 4, but they have no context what that actually, they're not doing the math. Like, will we make strides in LLMs? Eventually, yes. But today we can do that, but it's kind of a connection of multiple models working together in this ecosystem. And the LLM, like, we think of it, it's like the brain. It understands the question, and you can guide it to take the right action, to recognize the right action with the context window and the prompt engineering, et cetera, that you feed into it. And then you have different agents, and some of those are math functions, and that's how it can do long division. Or some of those are forecasting algorithms and other ML models, and you can kind of move through everything that way.
So we're almost out of time. Almost out of time. One last question. Okay, lady over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the agent-to-agent conversation. Klarna recently made headlines talking about how they're ending their partnership with Salesforce and Monday.com so that they can use generative AI to replace these solutions. I'm curious, do you see this happening more widespread or anticipate that in the financial industry?
So I would say everybody is developing agents right now. Like, every startup is doing it, every large organization is doing it, and it's just kind of like an agent arms race. And somebody's going to win, somebody's going to get a better orchestration layer, and they're going to be able to more efficiently orchestrate these agents. And what it's going to come down to is capability, like what can the agent do, and accuracy, how well does it do it? And whoever wins that and can do it cheaper is then going to just wipe the board. So yes.
I would watch for who has the data right, not Salesforce. Salesforce is a great company, but those are just technologies, right?
I would be very mindful about something called due process and who's got their hands on that. It's not a trivial issue.
Thanks to the panel. Just in wrapping up real quick, I think three key messages we heard, and I'm sure there were several more. I think these are like my takeaways from here, and I've heard this, interestingly, at TED from the CVS Caremark CIO, Tilak Mandadi, so it's quite uncanny that we're kind of hearing the reverberation of the same sounds here in this community as we heard in the TED community in Vancouver. And the commentary was, take stupid out of work. Those were his words. We kind of heard some of that, like all the mundane stuff that we shouldn't be, don't fill another form ever, right? That's the basic ask. Then the other thing that I heard there at TED was maximize human connection and minimize human error. And I think we heard some of that here in the room, because there was this need for human connection and then minimizing the error, because you don't want hallucination, you want the right answers. And then the last thing I think we briefly touched on, we didn't really go into much into depth, which I think we're all here towards the retail panel, we'll try to regroup on that topic, is the threat of bad actors. And even to the point the gentleman here was making about agents, and we talked about this agents arms race, and Nisha mentioned about bots talking to bots. And all that is practically and tangibly possible, but then look at it from the lens of the digital you. Whose objective is being met by that AI? The profit motive of the 7 agents is the shareholders of those 7 companies, not you. Whose question is it answering? So with that, we'll wrap this panel. Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists.